What if I told you that the most beautiful garden isn't necessarily the garden birds want? In fact, some of the things we spend the most time maintaining may actually make a garden less useful to them. Birds aren't looking for perfection. They're looking for something much more important: food, shelter, water, and somewhere they can disappear when danger arrives. And once you understand what a bird is actually looking for, you can transform almost any garden into a place they keep coming back to. If you enjoy discovering the hidden reasons behind the behavior of the birds around you, subscribe to Feathered Mysteries, because here we look beyond what birds do and uncover why they do it. Now imagine for a moment that you could see your garden through the eyes of a small bird. The lawn stretching across the garden isn't a beautiful green carpet anymore. It's an exposed landscape. The neatly trimmed hedge isn't just a hedge, it's either a wall of protection or, if it's too sparse, almost no protection at all. And that beautiful flower border, it may look spectacular to you, but if it contains little food, few insects, and nowhere to hide, it may be almost useless to a bird. A bird-friendly garden isn't really about adding a few objects. It's about creating a place where a bird can survive. The first thing a bird needs is somewhere to hide. This is one of the most important and most overlooked parts of creating a bird-friendly garden. Small birds live with danger all around them. Cats can stalk them from below. Birds of prey can attack from above. Even bad weather can become a serious challenge for a tiny animal trying to conserve energy through a cold night. Dense shrubs, hedges, climbing plants and trees give birds something incredibly valuable: cover. A thick shrub can become a refuge where a bird can vanish in seconds. Thorny vegetation is particularly useful because it can be difficult for predators to penetrate. Holly, hawthorn, dense roses and other prickly plants can provide both protection and, depending on the species, food. And this creates our first secret: the best bird garden isn't necessarily the cleanest garden. A slightly wild corner may actually be one of the most valuable places you have. There is another form of shelter you can provide: a nest box. And despite its name, a nest box isn't necessarily useful only when birds are raising young. Some cavity nesting birds may use suitable cavities for roosting outside the breeding season, particularly when they need protection from cold weather. But putting up a box isn't simply a matter of hammering one onto a tree and forgetting about it. Location matters. It should be securely mounted, protected from excessive weather, and positioned where cats and other predators cannot easily reach it. The entrance should face away from prevailing bad weather where possible, while nearby vegetation can give birds somewhere to retreat after leaving the box. And don't be disappointed if nothing moves in immediately. Birds don't have to accept the real estate just because you built it. They have to decide that it is safe. But even the safest garden won't become a bird paradise without food. And this is where many people make their first mistake. They think creating a bird garden means putting out a feeder. Feeders can certainly provide supplementary food, but birds evolved in landscapes rather than around plastic feeding stations. What really makes a garden valuable is a diversity of natural food sources. Seeds, fruits, berries, and insects can all become part of the food web. Different birds are looking for different things, which means the more varied your garden is, the more species it can potentially support. A blackbird searching beneath a shrub is solving a different problem from a blue type searching among leaves, while a finch feeding on seeds has completely different requirements again. The goal isn't to attract one particular bird. It's to create enough resources for many different kinds of birds. Fruiting plants can be especially useful as the seasons change. Hawthorn berries, rose hips, holly berries, crab apples, and other fruits can provide food when many flowers have disappeared. But here's something that can be difficult for gardeners to accept. If you plant berries for birds, you have to be prepared for birds to take them. You may spend months watching a shrub develop beautiful red or orange fruits only to discover that the birds have found them before you have, and that isn't a failure. That's the entire point. A garden full of untouched berries may look beautiful, but a garden where the berries keep disappearing is telling you something. The birds are using it, and there is another food source hiding in your garden that you may not even think of as food: insects. Caterpillars, beetles, flies, spiders, and countless other small creatures are essential parts of the diets of many birds, particularly when they are feeding young. This is why a garden that is completely spotless can actually be less useful than one with a little natural mess. Fallen leaves can shelter invertebrates. Dead stems can provide places for insects to live. Dense vegetation creates tiny habitats that disappear when everything is constantly cut back. So if you have a corner of your garden where leaves collect and plants grow a little more freely, don't automatically clean it up. You may be looking at a miniature food factory. And now we come to something birds need just as much as food: water. It sounds obvious, but fresh water can become surprisingly important, particularly during hot or dry weather. Birds drink, but they also bathe. Bathing helps them maintain their feathers, and feathers are not simply decoration. They are essential for flight, insulation, and protection. A shallow bird bath can therefore become an important resource. It doesn't have to be expensive. A simple shallow container can work, provided birds can stand safely and escape quickly if a predator appears. A few stones can create useful footholds for smaller birds, but there is one rule that matters more than how beautiful the bird bath looks: keep it clean. Water that is allowed to become dirty can become a source of disease rather than a benefit. Replace it regularly, scrub the container, and don't allow food or debris to build up around it. There is also a hidden detail about water that many people miss. Think about where you put it. A bird doesn't want to land in a place where it can be ambushed. Ideally, the bird should have a clear view around the water while still having nearby vegetation that provides an escape route. Too exposed, and a bird may avoid it. Too concealed, and a predator could use the vegetation to hide. Once again, the answer is balance. A bird-friendly garden is full of these little compromises between safety and opportunities. But what if you don't have a large garden? What if you have only a small backyard? You can still make a difference. Birds don't need a huge estate. They need useful resources. One dense shrub can provide shelter. One tree can provide perches and insects. One fruiting plant can provide food. One clean water source can provide drinking and bathing opportunities. A small garden can contain several different habitats simply by using different layers. Ground cover for one species, shrubs for another, climbing vegetation and trees for birds that forage higher up. Suddenly the garden isn't one habitat anymore, it's several habitats stacked together. And this brings us to perhaps the biggest secret of all: don't make everything tidy. We've been trained to think that a perfect garden means neatly cut grass, perfectly shaped shrubs, bare soil, and no fallen leaves. But nature doesn't work that way. Wildlife needs complexity. A pile of leaves isn't just rubbish, a fallen branch isn't necessarily waste, a patch of longer grass isn't necessarily neglected. These things can create shelter for insects, and insects feed birds. Seed heads can provide food. Dense plants provide cover. The slightly untidy corner you were planning to clear may actually be doing more for wildlife than the ornamental plants you carefully maintain. There is another reason to let part of your garden become a little wild. Birds are constantly searching for information. Every time one enters your garden, it is effectively asking a series of questions. Is there food here? Is there water? Can I escape if something attacks me? Is there somewhere to rest? Is this place disturbed? And perhaps most importantly, is it worth coming back? If the answer to those questions keeps being yes, your garden can become part of a bird's regular territory. You may begin to notice the same robin appearing each morning, blackbirds searching beneath the hedge, or blue tits moving through the branches with remarkable speed. What began as a garden can slowly become part of their landscape. But there is one final mistake to avoid. Don't try to transform everything overnight. A bird-friendly garden is not created by buying 20 products and putting them everywhere. Start small. Create one sheltered area. Add a reliable water source, plant something that produces natural food. Leave some vegetation standing, let leaves remain in one corner. If you use feeders, keep them clean and manage them responsibly. Then watch what happens, because the real transformation is surprisingly subtle. At first, you may notice only one bird, then another. You might see insects you haven't noticed before. You might discover that birds are using a shrub you planted months ago, and eventually you realize that your garden has started functioning differently. It isn't simply a place where birds occasionally visit. It has become a place where they can feed, hide, drink, rest, and move safely through the landscape. And perhaps that is the most beautiful thing about creating a bird paradise. You're not bringing the wild into your garden. You're making your garden a little more like the wild. So tomorrow morning, when you hear birds singing outside your window, listen a little more carefully. That sound isn't just beautiful background noise. It is the sound of animals making decisions about where they live, where they feed, where they hide, and where they return. And if you've given them what they need, one of those decisions may be to come back to your garden again. Because the real secret isn't asking, how do I attract more birds? It's asking something much more interesting. What can I change so the birds actually want to stay? Start looking at your garden through their eyes. You may never see it quite the same way again.